Welcome to another episode of Performance That Matters. I'm your host, Jordan Sullivan. In today's episode, we're talking all things HYROX Nutrition. In this episode, Loz and I discuss the key differences between HYROX Nutrition compared to Crossfit Nutrition. We cover my recent race in Perth, the fueling strategies used leading into it, the energetics of a HYROX race, if intra-race fueling is really required, if carb loading is even necessary, and how this compares to CrossFit Nutrition. If you're a hybrid athlete or someone looking to tackle their first HYROX race, then this episode is for you. Let's get to it.
All right, we're live back for another episode of Performance That Matters. We're live in the studio today from not so sunny Perth with Lauren Nash, the ex-fit dietitian. Loz.
Hey, welcome back to Perth. I feel like we only get crap weather when you're here, so I'm looking forward to you leaving tomorrow, Arvo.
Yeah, we have an ongoing joke in the team chat that Perth is the worst city.
Excuse me, Melbourne is 100% guaranteed the worst city.
Yeah, to be fair, last time I was in Melbourne though, it was banging weather, and then I rock up here. Yesterday was great, and then get up this morning, it's just absolutely terrible. But
well, lucky HYROX was indoors.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what we're talking about today is HYROX Nutrition. I just finished doing the HYROX race here in Perth.
Yeah, that was my first time actually going to a HYROX event. Obviously, we've got lots of clients that do it, love working in the background, but I've never been to an event. It was great to see. Bit tricky to navigate as a spectator.
Yeah, what do you think?
It was, I'm used to CrossFit, right? I used to go to and do a few CrossFit comps. It was similar, but I think all the different stations and then the running, once I knew where you were at, it was way better. But I was watching and I was thinking, I'm glad I'm on the spectator side. Actually, it looks pretty tough. I mean, how did you feel? And yeah, what was your race recap of the day?
It was good. That was my second race, so with my brother, I do it. It was good. It was a good time. We hit the same time in Melbourne. I don't think he put as big a training block in as he did last time. He was struggling a bit towards the end, but it was good. I love the HYROX training because it complements the ultra running really well. I find it's good because you can get the higher intensity sessions in, but then you're also getting the weight. So I really like doing it. And I throw in 2, maybe 3 a week, depending on what Maddie has me doing. But I felt really good out there. I think HYROX as a sport is very interesting if you do it properly because it's just basically running at your threshold, which everyone has a different threshold. And then it's just pushing yourself in those weights. And it's like an interesting game of how you time this because you can just go out and absolutely bail yourself. And I definitely saw that today. Some guys were pretty excited in the tunnel, went out. And then, by the second station, they were pretty cactus. But it was fun. Like I felt really good. I think for the next one, I'll definitely probably do a solo one and really just go all in. But it's an interesting sport. And I think the nutrition side of it is really interesting too, because really you're only out there, like we were out there for little over an hour, just over an hour. So it's really, if you fuel up properly, you should be able to get through that. That's all relative, right? Like there were guys out there that would take, hour and a half, hour 45. And then you kind of got to have that conversation. It's like, is it worth for them getting some fuel in?
Absolutely. And I mean, from what I could see, I didn't see you getting any fuel in. I did see 1 or 2 guys run past with the gel. Obviously didn't have anything during, but what did you have beforehand? And is it something you do again? Or give us your little pre-race nutrition.
Yeah, I went with my stock standard. So I have a very particular, I do it every day before my big training sessions. I do it before my ultra races. Yeah, and I've been doing it for the HYROX training. So I'll just do 3 pikelets with maple syrup, and it ends up getting me about 60 grams of carbs, and I'll just sip on a sports drink. So I end up getting about 90 grams in within the 90 minutes before going into the event. And I felt really good. I mean, with that type of event though, I feel like your nutrition absolutely does make a difference. I think especially leading up to it, I don't think you necessarily have to carb load. I think carb loading excessively in a way that you would for a marathon or an ultra for an event like that is a bit over the top. And I think it would be disadvantage to you, to be honest, because I think you'd be heavier. When you start like an ultra, you're always 2-3 kilos, you're pumped up with glycogen, but it carries you through 6 hours into a race. You're like, okay, I'm so glad I did that properly. Whereas for a HYROX, when you're really gunning it and going, I don't think that's advantageous. So I think if you hit in somewhere, I usually go about 6-7 grams per kilos of carbs. That's what I'm aiming for the day before, which when I'm in a big training block is not that much more than what I'm eating every single day anyway. Yep. But I think it definitely makes a big difference. I definitely would not recommend going into that on a coffee fasted if you're going to send it. Because like I said, you're running at that threshold. It's a tough work. And then it's like threshold, jumping into the stations, your heart rate's peaking up, you're catching your breath when you can, and then you're leaving on sore legs and going like, you've got to have the fuel in there. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just watching everyone thinking, if I was here right now, I would just be, in that glycolytic state for the entire race, really. So you do need those quick carbs. I feel like glycogen is really only going to help you so much for an event that lasts that long. But like you said, maybe the people that are out there going for a little bit longer, or potentially if you're doing a solo, doing, more of the work, okay, I could definitely see the benefits of maybe, even having something during. But I think in terms of beforehand, absolutely. I mean, we don't probably need to do a carb load before something like a HYROX competition. Maybe for a CrossFit competition, those multi-day events, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But I think, it's what you do in that few hours before your race, which is going to really make or break it for you and ensure you've got that energy to really step it up a notch in the intensity.
Yeah, that's the convo I have with all the HYROX clients we work with. And we've got some pretty high level guys. I think once you're cracking into the elite stage of it, I think having a gel is pretty important. And I get a lot of the guys just to tuck it in the back of their pants, and you'll usually see them have it after 4 or 5 stations. And that's good. I think even just, and you'd know this if you're from your Ironmans and marathon, I definitely know it from ultras, even if you're mouth rinsing and your brain thinks you're getting those carbohydrates in, that's such a huge boost. And I definitely feel like if you're sending and you're truly running at your threshold pace, say if you're doing anything sub 4 minutes, probably worthwhile. But then in the same sense, if you're doing 4-minute running, you're working through the stations, you're doing a sub 60 HYROX. If you're hydrated beforehand, you've eaten pretty well the week leading up, you're not doing a crazy carb load, you should have everything in there. The big thing I found with the training with HYROX and the combo I have with all the clients is the training is what gets you through this. You've got to have a really good aerobic base for your recovery. You've got to be able to push into that anaerobic zone. You've got to be able to run. That's your training day in, day out. And that's where your nutrition gets really important. Like you've got to be eating really well so you can rock up to those training sessions and then consistently run, say, even if you're doing just at threshold. You've got to be able to do that. Not every single day of the week, but on your training days, rock up, hit that intensity. Okay, I'm getting the adaptation from that. And to get through that, you need to be eating properly. So I think even though during the competition, it may not be front and center like it is in an Ironman, but I think leading up and in the months or weeks or however long you're training for it, so important.
Definitely. And it's probably hard to answer this question because you weren't just full-time hybrid rockstar training. You were also balancing that with a couple of ultras that you've been training for. But do you change your nutrition week to week, based on what your sessions are? Or would you say you've got a pretty set plan in terms of your pre and intra, regardless if it's a higher intensity or a lower intensity? How do you balance it, the ultra training versus that higher intensity threshold style HYROX training?
Yeah, I definitely do consider it because with the longer ultra sessions, you have to, because you got to train your gut. You've got to get your gut right, which I feel like really helps because I was drinking sports drink right before in the athlete warm-up zone, and that sits fine in my gut. Whereas say with my brother, he could not do that. He just has not trained his gut. He can not really eat a big meal. I forced him to eat a couple pikelets this morning so he wouldn't completely fade out. But but yeah, you've got to train it. I think the longer, harder sessions, you've got to be fueling it. I think with the HYROX sessions, when I'm doing those thresholds, even in training, you're only going 45 for an hour. I think I need to be able to hit this intensity. So what I'm eating in that day leading up to it, really important, like focusing, eating good food, going into it hydrated. And I'll always have something pre. I don't necessarily go during for it. Because I know in the event, I'm not going to be doing that. So it's like you want to do as many things in training that you're going to be doing competition day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as well, like you said, it's the training side of things as well. And we were talking as well how I guess HYROX and CrossFit are similar but different. HYROX training, again, not something I've done personally, you have, but like you said, right, sessions are typically 45, 60 minutes. Again, not a style of session where you really need to be fueling, have a bottle of water with you, perfect, maybe have some train aid in there or something like that. But when we kind of switch over to the CrossFit style of training, depending if you're someone that just goes, does the 1 hour class and heads home, or you're someone that's there, does your warm up, does your accessories, does the WOD, does extras, you could be there for 90 minutes to 3 hours as well. So it's those types of sessions where they're a little bit more complex as well, not just that faster pace all the time, where, okay, people could probably actually start incorporating, their fueling into their training sessions as well. If you're someone that's even does CrossFit training but enjoys a HYROX comp, I feel like those longer style of training sessions can still, benefit from nutrition, even though it's not an endurance race. I think anything over that, 90-minute mark is still give or take for some fueling in between.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on it? Because and again, I'm not in the CrossFit world. I'm kind of half in the HYROX world, I guess now. I've done a few of them. We have a lot of HYROX clients, but it's like, I feel a lot of the CrossFit guys are slowly coming over.
Yeah.
There's still that battle of the purebreds in CrossFit, don't like whatever. We stay out of that. But it's totally different, right? At least from my observation. What did you think? Like, you've seen that now. You know what I do for training. How does that compare? Even just the training. What's the CrossFit training? Because from the clients I have, and even Billy who does it, they're there 3+ hours sometimes. It's wild how long you're in the gym for.
Definitely. And I guess, again, I don't do the the HYROX style training myself, but it's very clear to me, I guess, the difference in strength, load, and the volume of the body in terms of the weightlifting side of things, because you don't necessarily need to be a weightlifter if you also do CrossFit, but you're probably doing the Ollie sessions at your gym. There's always a strength component to your workouts as well. So I feel like that strain on the body is, a huge part of it as well. But also, yeah, some people might just do the 1 hour class, but most people go and they do maybe 2 classes in a row, or they do a class and do their extras as well. So I feel like the overall load is probably a bit heavier. You're in the gym for a lot longer. But also, even if we just think about the competitions, right? I mean, I was never elite, never did individual comps. I always did a few pairs and a few team events, but you don't just go and do one workout and you're done. They're usually maybe 2 or 3 events in a day, and that could be a single day, or it could go over 3 days. We've got things like the turf games now. They're even in the pool, they're doing runs. So it's becoming a lot more, I guess, multi-sport, which is awesome. But I guess unlike a HYROX event where you're there, depending on what pace you're hitting, maybe 50 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, with the CrossFit event, you might actually only be out on the comp floor for 10 minutes, right? It might be an AMRAP style workout, but chances are in about 90 minutes, you'll be back there again. So that's when, okay, training your gut, having fueling in training is helpful, because on a competition day, you need to be able to eat in between and around your workouts as well, because you can't just have, a couple of pikelets in the morning and be good to go after you finish that first workout. Maybe you need a couple more pikelets, or it's a banana, or, Rockaby choc milk, or whatever it might be. So I think, again, just from my observation, I feel like that CrossFit comp environment as well is a little bit more demanding over the day, and you've got to be able to back up events with a really quick turnaround for nutrition. And if you haven't really trained your gut, or you don't eat well in your broader training diet, that can be a bit uncomfortable on comp day when you're trying to navigate eating around a really short timeline. And adrenaline, right? I mean, it's hard to eat when you don't have much of an appetite, but you've got a short turnaround between comps.
What's that look like from a nutrition standpoint? So say just a training.
Yeah.
So if someone's rocking up, they've got a 3-hour session. What are they eating before? And then I'm assuming they're packing a bag. What are they putting in that bag, taking it to the gym? How frequently are they eating? What's the food they're eating? What are they drinking? Talk us through that. Yeah,
of course. I mean, obviously everyone's going to be a little bit different, but I suppose, for example, I find that some of the CrossFit athletes that I work with, they don't just feel good fueling off maybe, say, a couple of pikelets, right? Because they're there for a few hours and it's not just high intensity from the get-go. So we find more things like, your oat bowls or even bagels that are slightly higher protein, even though it's a carb source. Getting something like that with maybe even some, like a protein shake and some banana and honey. Just making that pre-training snack a little bit more complex from the beginning to have more stable energy levels. Any supplements they might take, for example, whether it's the creatine or some beta-alanine or caffeine, of course, some of those go-to supplements. And then when they're in the gym, right, obviously got a water. I mean, depending if they're heavy sweater, we might have some electrolytes there. If it's hot, some of those gyms get pretty hot. There's no air cons in the CrossFit gyms. But in terms of intra, it doesn't need to be as intense as a marathon training, right? We don't need to be getting down 60 grams of carbs per hour. But I'll typically say, keep a couple of small things in your gym bag, like maybe a bag of dried mango, keep a couple of oat slice bars in there, or a banana. Or if you're just someone that, still feels weird about eating while you're in the gym, get a good carb electrolyte drink mix. Maybe get some, diluted fruit juice or coconut water, whatever your vibe is. And even just try and get something in between classes. Say, for example, if you're doing the normal class and then adding your extras in, go every 60 minutes. Or if you're just in there doing your own thing, every 45 minutes, just have a small handful of Sour Patch Kids or something, just to keep your blood sugar stable.
What about competitions? And you mentioned turf games. And yeah, we worked with the Change team last year, ended up winning the pro division. And I remember doing a lot of their guys' nutrition, and it was interesting, right? Like for me, I went in and it's like, these are big days. This weekend, You're doing a huge load. You have to be fueling quite a lot. What are they doing at CrossFit, turf games, those multi-day events? Are you carb loading into that or not so much? Or
I would encourage, even if it's a 1 day carb load, right? Because you're not out there running for 4 hours like you would be if you're doing a marathon, but you're using a lot of energy. You're expending a lot there in terms of the different styles of training. You might be having a max lift, then next minute it might be like a running and ski erg style workout. So you're using different energy systems as well, but largely glycolytic and that phosphagen phase as well. So we need to have a lot of creatine, carbohydrates, those types of things. But in terms of pre, I actually think that's where a carb load could come in handy outside of that endurance space. Even if it's a 1 day, could be 8 to 10 grams carbs per kilo body weight. Doesn't need to be up there in that 12 gram, right? You don't want to be feeling too heavy if you're, on the bars doing pull-ups, muscle ups, those types of things. And in terms of over the competition, I think you can only, yes, carbs are important between events, a couple of red frogs or bananas, but if you're only having carbs, you're probably going to have highs and lows with your energy. So I think it's important as well with those strength style workouts to still get a bit of protein in between events as well. Like whether it's a, like I know not ideal, but maybe ham and cheese toasty if there's a cafe there, or, again, a chalky milk, perfect, a little bit more complex, just so that you're not on this carbohydrate high all day and not recovering between events.
Yeah, it's a big one, right? And I talk to all of our HYROX guys about it. When the intensity goes up, eating is so much harder, right? All the blood's going to your muscles. CrossFit's interesting, especially those type of events, because you're going really hard, but it's also a really long event as well. Say with the HYROX, there's lots of guys eating bananas, smashing a gel beforehand, a few red frogs, and that works perfectly fine, especially if you've done the little carb load, maybe one day, bumped up 7-8 grams even, you're full of glycogen, you'll rip through that. It's quite tough though with the CrossFit guys, because like you said, you don't want to just be having the simple sugars, because that's absolutely a thing, and you feel that. I feel it in races all the time. You feel great when you put it in, you come up, but what goes up has to come down.
Definitely.
And though having more of the protein, having closer to meals makes you feel so much better. What type of meals are they having then? Like, are you taking that to even training? Are you doing that in training? I guess you have to practice this, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending where you train, a lot of gyms, right, they've got a little kitchen there. So many of my people, they'll have even just like a couple of rice sachets and tins of tuna like that they'll keep in their gym kitchen, or they'll keep in their gym bag with them, just so that if they are there for a longer period of time, they can actually still get a proper meal in and around their training as well. And I mean, comp days, right, you're not going to be able to take your own meal, prep chicken and rice and heat it up. And usually all sporting events, right, they've never got the healthiest things on offer. But even if it's something as simple as like a chicken wrap sandwich, something that you can easily take with you. Even the YoPro yogurts these days, they come in those more insulated packages that can stay out of the fridge for 2 hours. It's those types of things that I think definitely is important to kind of have over training. And yeah, it's not just the red frogs, because that won't help you too much if you're doing maybe like a slower gymnastic set where, you're going for a few hours, but you're not actually getting your heart rate up super high.
What's your thoughts, Loz? Are you going to do one? Now you've come in, you've seen it.
You tried to sign me up for this one a few weeks back, and I thought, please don't embarrass me like that, because I haven't lifted, a muscle for so long. But when I was there this morning, I thought I can see how this could be incredibly addictive. It gave me CrossFit comp vibes, and as soon as I walked in there, it was so loud. My heart rate increased. I wasn't even racing. But never say never. I think maybe even Nick and I could do a mixed duo or something like that. So yeah, maybe 2026 we'll do HYROX debut.
I do love the energy of it. I mean, I've done lots of sports. I mean, rugby growing up, then I got into boxing really heavy, and then when I got into more martial arts, getting into jiu-jitsu really heavy, then swapping into the ultras, and now doing more of the HYROX style. It is cool the way they set it up, and I love that energy. And it's like, you go in there and it's good. Everyone's there. It's good people.
Yep.
It's fun. I do think though, and I know you're obviously looking at it very biased, right? Because this is what we do every single day. I did think when I was going into that comp today, when we were in the tunnel, and then even after a couple laps, I'm like, you can tell very clearly. They're either, not that they're unfit. I think fitness will carry you a lot, but you can tell people who are not fueling. I saw some dude chundering in a bin, and I was like, that's not good. You obviously haven't trained with whatever you're drinking or you ate beforehand. That's not good. And then just guys with stitches, that was a big one too. Like they obviously thought, okay, I'm going to wake up and have an oat bowl, and you just see them like walking like this, and you're going, that's just training your gut. You should be practicing that before those big sessions. Like most people are doing on a Saturday, Sunday, a simulation session. You can absolutely practice that. But I think the event overall is super fun. It's just like most things, like a marathon, like ultra marathon. I think HYROX is so much more fun when you're well fueled.
Yep.
If you're well fueled going into that, you're going to have the most fun. And it isn't. And I would love my brother to pieces, but I was even looking back at him going, you should have definitely ate more before you came in. Because you can tell, like, he's fit as at some point at the back end of that workout, the glycogen's coming down. That's where that nutrition does pay off. And like you said, it's just one gel, but it makes a difference, and it makes it so much more fun. I always say that sport is the best thing ever when you're well fueled and you can make the most out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Same when you've got like double training days. You never want to do that second one. But if you've got energy in the tank because you've eaten well all day, you look forward to it. So it's I totally agree. Yeah, any sport's great, but it's even better when you've got the energy in the tank to get it done.
Let's recap. Let's give everyone, I'll do the HYROX style, you do a CrossFit. Let's just give a macro breakdown. I think calories is always going to be individual.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think going into these type of events, I think you probably could if you were diligent enough. I always say weight loss and looking at that, I don't think ever do it when you're in a competition phase. If you're out and you think, okay, this is going to make me better at this for whatever, I always think eating enough calories to get to that training, that's what's going to give you the adaptation. Make sure you're eating enough calories. Absolutely. Yep. I think if you're going into a HYROX comp, You don't have to go crazy high carb, but you've got to have it there. I'd say moderate. I'd say anywhere in your daily diet between 4 and 7 grams per kilo is probably good.
Yep.
If we're doing protein, anywhere from 1.5 all the way up to 2.5, depending on what you like to eat, grams per kilo. Fat, I don't think you need to be doing too low. I would be going 1 up to 1.5, even 2, depending on what your diet. So we go carbohydrates, say 4 to 7 grams per kilo. Let's do protein. We'll do 1.5 to 2, maybe even 2.5 if you love a steak. And fat, let's say 1 to 1.5 grams, maybe a little higher.
Yep.
Then do a 1-day load. You don't need to go crazy. You do not need to go crazy on your HYROX carb load. Bump that up, maybe do 5 to 7, maybe 8 at most. If you're in a big training block, you're going to be eating that anyway.
Yep.
What's the macros if we're talking CrossFit though? What's that?
Perfect. I reckon to make it a little bit different as well, we're talking more those CrossFit athletes that are in the gym for, 2-3 hours in their sessions, not just kind of going in for the odd class and out. I'd probably, because of that, I'd say carbs probably need to be up there around that maybe 7 to 10 gram per kilo per day if you're in there doing multi-hour sessions. Even 6, maybe 6 at the lowest, 6 to 10, because I know there's some gymnastics kind of days in there as well. Protein, probably at the higher end, I'd say 2 to the 2.5 gram per kilo. And in terms of fat, I would agree with you, probably similar to HYROX, so 1 to 1.5 grams, ultimately going no lower than 20% of your daily calories coming from fat. Super important. I know CrossFit, preaches the zone diet, but we don't need to be having a keto style diet here for CrossFitters. And in terms of a carb load, you could definitely do a 2-day. I still feel like you probably don't need to do a 2-day carb load for a CrossFit competition, but 1 day would be more than enough. And if you are hitting anywhere from that 6 to 10 gram per kilo body weight, 8 to 10 could be a good amount. Or if you are hitting that upper end, 10 to 11 would be great 1 day. I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, all right. HYROX versus CrossFit. I think that covers it pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one
both good sports.
Next one's Melbourne in December, so I'm going to actually sign you up. I said I was going to sign you up for this one last minute, but I'm actually going to sign you up.
December's not a good month for me.
Yeah, very true. You're going to have to come straight from, that would be pretty funny, actually. Okay, March in Brisbane for Loz. All right, Loz, let's wrap that up there. That's a good episode.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordi.
All right.
See you on the next one.
And that's it for another episode of Performance That Matters. If you're enjoying these podcasts, please like and subscribe and consider leaving a review. This will help us grow the podcast and help us spread our message of performance far and wide. And that's it for now. I'll see you next time on Performance That Matters.